So shall we just dive in then and get this pantomime horse of a podcast underway? Now, week 13, Kieran, week 13
Oh,
isn't unlucky because we spent it together at the Gartner Data and Analytics Conference, or as you like to call it, the Glastonbury of AI. And I
oh, we
don't know
did.
about you, but I was almost as exhausted after bloody 3 days at Gartner as I was at 5 days at bloody Glastonbury.
That's right. It was, yeah, it was exhausting. It's interesting because it's quite different, obviously, like what you're doing, mostly sitting down all day at Gartner, although fair few
A lot of
steps.
walking. Yeah.
Glastonbury would be 25,000 steps a day. So, and I think Gartner wasn't even getting to 10,000, including the commuting. So,
Yeah,
but
but
yeah,
I've seen you dancing at Glastonbury, and that, I mean, that's more shuffling than steps, isn't it?
I doubt you've seen me dancing at Glastonbury,
Having the
my God.
silent disco.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Indeed, yes, you have seen me there, and I shall not share the photographs of me in the silent disco.
It's best not. It's best not. Something what goes on Glastonbury stays in Glastonbury. However, what goes on in Gartner comes out in this podcast.
Yes, indeed,
So
yes,
what's
and
on
I
your list from the Gartner conference for 2026?
my big feedback points, which will be no surprise to anybody that was there, which our listener probably wasn't,
He
um,
definitely wasn't.
is is no indeed is context is king. That was a big phrase and weaved through a lot of what they did there. Interestingly, there's a little aside here. I think one of the really good things that Gartner pull off, which I have never seen happen at any other conference or event, is they clearly say these are the Gartner thought positions, thought leadership positions, and they force every one of their speakers to include something about it. Even the sort of storytelling guy at the end was talking about the context layer, and
Yeah,
it was a be real quite a
yeah,
side piece for him. But I think that is why it works really well as a conference because you get that constant sort of theme or story arc through it. Anyway, that was my congratulations, Gartner, on doing that. So context layer, which we can talk about, knowledge graphs, which we've done a bit with already, but more to do, and feedback loops. Those are the three biggies.
hmm
Um, but my overall reflection, as I've shared, is on Monday, you and I went for a small beverage to reflect on the day and download and strategize. And I think you really were probably more on this than me, but we both felt that firstly, we felt reassured and confident by what we'd heard, that what we're doing in leading AI is kind of along the right line. There was nothing we heard that we weren't either aware of or working on or have already cracked. So that was really powerful and good. And then Tuesday happened, and by the end of Tuesday, I was doubting everything. I was thinking, I don't know anything. So it was really interesting. And then through Wednesday, I think the reflection was there was a lot of language on Tuesday that was
yeah,
that tech bro language,
yeah,
which made it feel like you didn't know anything. And actually, when you unpack what they were saying, which it wasn't, I felt much more reassured. But
yeah.
it was horrible
It was a
emotional
roller
roller coaster.
coaster, an emotional roller coaster. I, yeah, I did at the end of the day one. I did think actually. Last year it was like trying to drink from a hose pipe. You know, it's like take a sip of water from a hose pipe. It was like it just felt like it was full on. And this year it felt very different. At the end of day one, I was quite not disappointed, and I'll come on to why in a second, because it's one of my themes. And the other thing is my themes will show very clearly the difference between the way that your brain works and my brain works. And you started with the emotional roller coaster piece. I've gone with a quite a structured thing, which you will laugh at. But yeah, so by the end of day two, I thought actually no, there is some really interesting stuff here. We've got some things to think about. But my overall reflection on it was at the end of it was good. There's nothing there where we thought we were on the wrong track. And we had two meetings with one which we both attended, but one I attended with Gartner specialists, and neither of them told us we were doing anything wrong or going in the wrong direction or anything else. That we're definitely going in the right direction. We're working on the right problems. We're actually ahead of most people because some of the things that they talked about and saying you need to think about this, you need to think about well, we were looking at each other and then going, hang on, are we doing that already? And then I sent something to Donald yesterday and he sent me this huge response back. And I was like, have you just put that into Claude to produce confusing language that I don't understand, which basically says, I'm on it, Watty. Will you just stop bloody hassling me? So that was funny. But yeah, it was reassuring. We definitely
Mm,
learnt a lot. And yeah, it was good value. But I took six things away
that's too many.
from
You should only have three, surely.
you should. I mean, it's one, two, three, many, right? But and some of them are linked. So let's. I could probably get them down to four, so if not three. Anyway, the first one, here you go. It is. Not many people know this. I've actually got a degree in mathematics, which most people can't bloody believe. So stats is my. There were a lot of really interesting stats. So I've got some stats to go through. Second one was about governance and trust, not just in the data, but also in the decision making
Yeah.
from AI, etc. And how do you improve that trust? Well, context is king. You've already mentioned that. So I've got and context adding meaning. So I've got some thoughts on that. The next bit is something you've already touched on, I think, is the change management piece, because that was up front and central and big. And I think that was the reason I was disappointed in day one, was because they majored so much on change management, that I thought, well, we've heard all that stuff before. I mean,
Yeah.
our background is program, project, and change management. It's just, so we've been doing that for 40 years.
If in doubt, blame it on the people.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But there
What do
was
you mean
one
my
of the,
technology's not being used? That's shocking. It
yeah,
must be your
adopt
people.
adoption's the problem. So therefore, and one of the things they said right at the start was you've got to spend twice as much on the implementation, on the change management, as you do on the implementation effort. And I was thinking, none of our customers are going to want to hear that message.
No,
They
exactly.
already are worried about AI costs, and actually, making it three times as expensive because you've got to add um, uh, the change management piece. But we know for a fact it is a challenge. We've got
Yeah,
that problem. We've got some customers who are doing a brilliant job of it.
yeah,
Ambition Institute, and that's
yeah.
because people like Sue are leading on it. But
Lincoln Bishop University have got an
yeah,
appointed person. They've got
yeah.
champions. They
So
are
there are
doing
people that
training.
are doing it and that can do it. But I think yeah, it was that whole kind of a bit frustrated that uh, um, that seemed to be their big push, and it turned out that it wasn't the big push because they did come back to the context and the knowledge graph,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about all that in a second. Anyway, number five on my list, actually five and six are more kind of cheerful, which is around. There were a lot of quotes, some of which were humorous, and I'll share some of those. And then my final one, I've got what I've described as the bonkers category, because there was some bonkers.
Uh,
Every year they have a couple of futurists talk, and
yeah.
a couple of them were hilarious, and other ones were terrifying. So I'll share some of that stuff. So yeah, where should we kick off? I mean, we're already about bloody 10 minutes in, aren't we? So
We
yeah,
are
let's
indeed,
kick off.
yeah. Gosh, we got loads of it. Well, let's talk. I'll kick into the context layer stuff because this is, I think,
Okay.
probably the most important one. Actually, feedback is, but anyway, context. Let's start with context. Context is all about telling your AI, the LLM, as it sort of shorthand, really, the large language model, more about your organization so that it can help you. The example and a bunch of the work that we do in natural language querying or text to SQL, as it's sort of shorthand phrase for it, is more challenging than kind of unstructured RAG documents looking in, just looking into policies and pulling answers. And one of the reasons that it's more challenging is that when you present it with a load of data in Excel, there's very little context.
Hmm.
Even the headings of the data, and this is something we ran into, gosh, 2 years ago, is that the headings in your if you pull data from your MIS system, you will have columns which are just meaningless codes, SPL4, whatever, and the AI, the large language model, can only guess what they are. And it's pretty good at
Yeah,
working out the context that it's looking in, but it is only pretty good.
yeah,
And therefore, it's also pretty bad, because
Yeah.
within that kind of model, what you're doing in text to SQL for our audience is you write a natural language question, i.e., how many sales did we make this quarter? The large language model has a look at that and goes, okay, I need to go, I can see the data set here and it's got some figures in it. I got to find the relevant columns and then write an SQL query to go and get the answer. And then it writes that answer back to you in natural language. So it's beautiful when it's working, and you can get into predictive stuff with it and all kinds of amazing, really, really good. And we're doing some of that with Lincoln Bishop on our learner analytics. So that's really, really useful. However, just go back to that question I just posed of how many sales have we had this quarter? Sales, first definition problem. Do I mean that I am a shop discounting products and doing Black Fridays? Or do I mean total invoicing? And do I mean
Or or
number?
is it like when Kieran White says, I've sold something, and I say, where's the signed contract? And you say, oh, I haven't got that yet, but it's definitely a sale. No, it's not until I get the signed contract. That kind of thing, you mean?
You're very black and white about these things. I like to be a little bit more grey about sales. And once they've shaken my virtual hand, then it's a sale. But yes, but even sales, even if you say, well, it's clearly financial data. Well, do I mean number of sales, or do I mean the total value of the number of sales, or something else? And quarter is not exactly clear, is it? Because you can have a financial quarter that starts any month you like. It's
Yeah.
down to whenever your financial year is. So just those two tiny examples alone show you, adding some context to how you define a quarter, how you define sales, if the people are asking it, helps. The challenge is there is lots more than just a bit of nomenclature. And even that would be hard if you think about an organization and all the different acronyms and the different things that are just baked in. It's a hell of a lot to try and capture. So that's one challenge. The second part is then in the data, how you present the data with a data dictionary. And then you've got the kind of different teams within the organization that might have a different way of looking at it. Finance probably want something a bit different to the head of sales.
Yep.
So all of those things are about context and many more. RAG indexes, as we would call it, that's the document sets that we point AI at for our customers. That's another part of context. The things we put in the system prompts is context. And the big message, I guess, was that, which leads on to knowledge graphs, but the big message is you can't just throw it all into every prompt. So a way around some of this stuff, which is what we do in some of our data tools, is build a data dictionary into the system prompt,
Yeah.
so that every time someone asks a question, what actually the LLM is seeing is their question, and then can be very big set of data dictionary information to tell it what it all means. But you can't do that with everything, because you'll end up with like 10,000 word prompts every time,
Yeah.
which costs a lot of money, but also just it's a lot of information in there that is not relevant, and
Yeah.
not relevant information in a prompt will always
Cause
create
problems.
some problems for you.
Yeah.
So that's context, and we are pretty good at it in that we have been building them into system prompts, and KnowledgeFlow, when it loads data, creates a data dictionary. It's a schema itself. So we've got some of it cracked, but we've clearly got some more stuff to do here. And then how you kind of store it, which is a graph, is the way to go, because then you can have, I think, as I understand it, you can have the LLM kind of go to the relevant part. The finance team are asking this question, therefore pick up the finance context
Yeah.
and do that. So there you go.
I
That was
didn't
context.
I,
Probably pretty
I
dull for our audience, but useful
well, I
for
don't
me.
know, because it's the difference between good retrieval and bad retrieval. I mean, that was one of the key lessons I took out of it, and I didn't really understand it, because they were talking about three things. One was ontology, second was
Yeah.
knowledge graphs, and the third was semantic layer. And I was like, they were implying that those things were certainly overlapping, but interchangeable, and it didn't make any sense to me. So I did the usual thing, and I went onto Perplexity and stuck it in. I said, "Can you explain this stuff to me in what the similarities and the differences are?" and explain it in words that a 15-year-old could understand. And it came back with an education context for me. And it's said it's a bit like a school system where the ontology is the rule book. So it's got the data definitions and it defines what a teacher is, what a pupil is, what a classroom is,
Right.
etc. The
Yeah.
knowledge graph is the directory. So it'll say Bob is a teacher, Alice is a student, etc. And then the semantic layer is like a notice board, or it's where you go for information, like how many pupils are there in year 10. And just thought it was a really interesting, simple explanation of between kind of rule book, directory, and notice board of being able to explain to people that if you've got those three things on top of your data, then it allows you to get much better retrieval. And I think what Donald was trying politely to say to me in his long hand note was yeah, I know I'm on it, and here's what we're already doing, and it turns out
Yeah.
we're actually doing quite a lot. And we didn't really know because we were using different language, and
Exactly.
it's a bit like we were talking. I can't remember who we were talking to, but it was like we didn't know it was rag until like 18 months into we were doing it. We did
Yeah.
just because we didn't know what the words were or
Uh,
what the industry was saying. We were actually doing lots of it. So I was reassured once I understood it better. Then yeah, and that
exactly. And
context, that adding meaning is really interesting because that adds to the governance piece that I wanted to touch on, which is the kind of how do you add trust?
mm,
And one of the Gartner like to put up a leading question, don't they, when they get a controversial question, would and one of them was in one of the presentations. I don't know if you were in it, but it was, would you trust the system that gets the answers wrong
yeah.
70% of the time?
Yeah.
And somebody else said, you wouldn't get on a plane where there was a 70% chance of you not making it to the
Yeah.
other
Indeed.
the
Yeah.
other end, would there? So and one of the things that one of the challenges that we've had, in fact, I had it on a call with a customer this afternoon. I don't know why I'm pointing over there because that's where I was sat. Was that how do I trust the information? And one of the lines from the Gartner piece was that LLMs are non-deterministic. Indeed,
Mhm.
they are consistently inconsistent
Yeah.
because they are bringing back different information each time if you don't have that context layer, if you haven't got the context piece in place. And of course, business is entirely deterministic because you have to have the right answer in the right format at the right time in the right place, etc. So us being able to master that, I think, is what gives us the edge over certainly over the public models, but I'd also argue against some of the don't want to be competition bashing, but you know what I mean. I think we're getting ahead of the curve on some of that stuff because we're dealing with those problems. Indeed, we we both saw an email this morning from a slightly disappointed customer who was, if he just started his email with the word sigh, you could have picked up the tone. He said, I'm sorry, I can't go ahead with KnowledgeFlow because I've been told the internal team want to have a bash at it with our existing vendors.
Oh,
And
yes.
I was thinking, well, we could go back and say, right, here's all the things that your team are going to probably get wrong, but I really didn't want to give them so that bad on me for not wanting to help them. But yeah, they will
No, I
make a
agree.
bunch of mistakes. From what he said, they will definitely make mistakes on
Well,
on what they're
yeah,
going to
so
do.
it turns out their own IT support has decided that they're going to support them in building some of these products that we've talked to them about. And the
Yeah,
reality is, I mean, if you've only just starting out and learning about that stuff, you haven't got like expert people in your team, then you have no hope. And here's what I think is the real challenge is there was a quote, wasn't it? It was either Arthur C. Clarke or someone else said, all new technology looks like magic.
yeah, that's right.
And that was a quote we saw at Gartner, and it's so true. And I think what happens more than anything is why people say I can do that with Copilot or Copilot Studio can do that is because it is coming from a place of deep ignorance.
Yeah,
And it looks like magic, and therefore you think you've weaved together a couple of things, pressed a couple of buttons, and the magic is now happening. And the reality is, it is dependent on the data and how that data is presented to the LLM. That is how RAG works. And if you don't know anything about that, you should not be running your business on a RAG model where you literally have no concept of how it's working.
yeah.
It's yeah, not clever.
No, no, I don't think so. And yeah, I think they will find out the hard way, but then that's their choice, and that's fine. I think the
Indeed.
other thing that I saw in a couple of the stuff, a couple of the presentations from Gartner was that whole um, uh, that technology gap. And it talked about people who are, it didn't quite call them AI skeptics, AI
Mm,
curious, and so
yeah,
are
cautious,
you
curious, and yeah, cautious. They used AI cautious.
Yeah, they did, and then there was another one where it said, "Are you AI plus or are you AI first as an organization?"
Yes,
And
yes.
if you're cautious and you're not doing anything, you're waiting and seeing, then you're getting left way behind. If you are AI plus, then you're falling behind those that AI first, because the pace of change. Just we've talked about it every week on this bloody thing about, there's a new model out this week. We've just done some testing. We're moving to the newer models in KnowledgeFlow on a regular basis, and things are getting better, cheaper, faster. So it's just people will get left behind. There's no doubt about it. One of the quotes that I wrote down was, "Not enough people have FOBO," and I was like, I don't know what
Ah,
FOBO is. It turns out fear of being obsolete, and
ah.
I think we have a we have a FOBO,
Oh yeah,
definitely.
definitely. Jeez.
Yeah, it keeps us on the edge, doesn't it? So Donald,
Constantly.
and there's another thing I've seen. There's another thing. Is it something else? He was funny on. I don't know if you saw his message. Was like, "Oh God, I'm sat waiting for the 100 bloody feature requests to come in from YouTube."
Yeah, yeah. I tried to be restrainful. Is that a word? Restrained
Yeah,
this time.
restrained. Yeah,
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 to try not to hit him constantly. I remember last time I'd phone him about every 2 hours and go, Donald, Donald, this is the thing, we're going to be doing this.
yeah, yeah,
That's really funny. Let's talk
yeah.
about feedback loops because
Okay.
it's also related to uh, the change man. You'll see why I think the change management challenge. We, as you know, in our agentic systems, our agentic solutions, are looking or have built a tool that will read an email inbox and it will respond to that in the appropriate way. And it can automate a response back, or it can put a draft in front of a human, or it can do a combination of that, depending on how much risk it thinks is the inquiry, etc. Works brilliantly, really good, and the plumbing, if you like, works now, which is a fantastic. That's the hard bit. The next part is how do you improve? How do you make sure that those emails you've got a tracking record so that you can make it be better and that you can look at the areas that you can automate and the areas that you can't. And the feedback loop is all part of that. So being able to capture the suggested email, the AI's first draft response to a tenant inquiry or a student inquiry or a procurement inquiry, and a human looks at it, says, "Yeah, good, no change, send." That being captured as a no change send or a small edit, make it a bit more friendly or whatever, capturing that, or a massive edit, factually incorrect sort of point. What we have to do is be able to capture that so that you're starting to move further down the chain towards the actual sort of decision and outcome. But a first step, once you're capturing that, that's when you can say, we've seen 300 requests from your tenants about pet policy. Can I have a pet? In 297 cases, the user decided that they should just send it as is, no change. Three were adjusted, and it was tiny adjustments. We therefore suggest you automate pet inquiries going forward. Uh, Data to do that, amazing. And then, of course, the fixing of things where you're seeing there are errors and being able to get into the RAG pipeline and work out why things aren't behaving as they should. So I think it's everything. And the change management link is that to do that, you've got to get the user working in the platform.
Mm.
Too much AI, including the earlier versions of KnowledgeFlow, would do you the email, then you take the email and put it somewhere else,
Yeah,
adjust it, and send it. The taking it somewhere else, now there's no feedback.
yeah.
So building that. So the challenge becomes making a really slick user interface that, to your, I don't want to steal your thunder, but the question you've posed the team at Leading AI to think about, I'll leave you to say it, but is how can we make that user experience on working in the platform with the email so easy and nice that it's an obvious thing that you'd want to do.
Yeah. Well, the question I posed was how do we make knowledge flow so helpful and enjoyable that people would feel stupid going anywhere else to do their work? And it kind of links to another thing I saw at Gartner, but has been reflecting. I think I've said before, I've been talking to a bunch of people in the medical world, GPs, for example, and and a really good example of this concept of designing solutions that disappear. That whole piece where the doctor is recording the
Yes,
session, the
yes.
transcript, it means they can actually look at the patient and actually interact with them, engage with them, and the patients then trust the doctor more. There was a brilliant stat from one of the people that said the doctors can't help themselves. Their very first question is, what appears to be the problem? And the
Yeah.
average amount of time they can restrain interrupting this idiot in front of them is 18 seconds. So you've got 18 seconds where they're not really thinking about what you're saying. What they're really thinking is, I've had a quick look at you and I'm pretty sure you're drinking too much, you're smoking too much, you're eating the wrong food, whatever it is. So they just don't think about it. But actually, how do you design a solution which takes the information and deals with it while the human to human interaction takes place? And I think for us with our knowledge flow platform, we've got to do something similar so that it is the place where they start their work. And we can do lots of the things already like the voice, etc., but how do we make it so enjoyable that they just don't want to go anywhere else? That's a really interesting challenge for us.
Definitely, and yeah, and looking forward to it. We've got some we're working on. We've got the team looking at it. Ibby and Donald are both looking at building something that might well capture hearts and minds
Excellent.
in it, and achieve those aims of capturing the feedback.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know about that. That's good.
Oh, I've been pushing them. I say I've been pushing them. That's not fair. They've, as always, been straight up for it
Yeah.
and are very keen to take it to the next step. So it's really exciting.
Oh,
And
good.
on that, very briefly, the thing that Gartner talked quite a bit about is this concept of I'm going to get they probably did have a name for it, but they would have definitely had a name for it. I don't remember it, but it's like an outcome-based
Mm.
teams or outcome-based organizations, and their point is that with AI, you should and can reorganize yourself to be kind of linear in the workflow, i.e., starting from here again to the outcome or decision, and one person, one team is responsible, and it's actually a hybrid of people and agents, is what they think the world of the future is.
Yeah.
But you're responsible for the end to end, from start to finish, one thing. And I think that is a really interesting concept of getting people to be more locked into the kind of outcomes they drive, rather than I just do the invoicing. It's a bad example, but I do the product specification, and then after that, I hand it to someone else who deals with the actual work. I
Mm.
think it's a really interesting. I think it's quite a tough way to envisage everything. I'm
It
not
is.
sure it
It's not a
works
new
for everything, but
concept. The outcomes based organization's been around for 20 years that I can remember. But the real challenge was people. And actually, the change is now agents. Agents don't care. Agents don't get promoted. Agents don't have egos. They just get
indeed,
on with the
yeah,
job.
yeah,
And
interesting.
actually, they just, so actually, you can be much more workflow and outcome focused. Interestingly enough, we talked about this, I think, last week was, if you think about the pricing for AI, do you move to an outcomes-based pricing model? And it's really hard to do when people are involved. Just take sales, for example. If there's a sales bonus, how many people were involved in that sale who've got their hand out? Yeah, success has many parents. Failures,
Indeed,
failures are unfortunately are orphans. So
indeed.
a real challenge. But that whole piece about outcomes-based, if you're using agentic systems to do the workflows, then it becomes much more feasible.
Yeah, yeah, and that idea of the way that a few of the different Gartner presentations talked about the sort of future organization of being, instead of having a
Yeah,
team of 8 people
yeah,
doing something, team of one or two with an agent or two, as in
yeah,
AI agent, doing work together.
Yeah.
and augmenting the human. That's exactly how Gartner kind of see the future,
Well, one of their
not
big
fewer roles.
yeah, one of their big uh, lines was human in the lead,
Yeah,
not human in the
exactly,
loop, wasn't it? How do you not,
exactly.
don't just give humans things to just keep pressing okay, 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 because they just
Yeah,
won't pay any attention and they'll just let anything through. But actually, if you're using humans, a bit like your example on the pets email, you don't need a human in the loop for a pet inquiry. If someone's got mold or can smell gas, that's very different.
yeah, exactly.
You need a human to lead on that, going, oh my goodness, we need to fix that instantly. The clock's ticking, so
Exactly.
let's
And
get
there's
on with
so
that one.
much in the housing world that is, the increased neurodiversity needs of tenants. So
Yeah,
people sort of no longer meeting the bar, or indeed through have waited long enough to get the sort of a diagnosis,
yeah,
but they still have all of the challenges. And
yeah,
now those challenges sort of land in the lap of housing associations to manage, and they want to manage them. They
yeah,
really keep, but of course they're inundated with pet inquiries and what time do you open so I can drop the keys off and all those kind of stuff, which
yeah,
so yeah, I'm excited about the potential of it. And I think, as I say, with that feedback loop data, having some real data to look at and see and to monitor how you're doing, and even the ones that have now been automated to keep checking in
yeah.
on those, that's really interesting. And
But
there's
there's
go
just
on.
some challenges with all of that, which lead on to some of the stats I noted because I'm a bit geeky like that. But only six, and these are Gartner. Just for in case anybody from Gartner's listening, these are Gartner stats, not mine. 6% of AI leaders they surveyed, only 6% thought that their organizations and their people were AI ready. That was really interesting,
Mm.
but only 12% of those leaders felt that their data was secure and governed correctly. So that whole data, I mean, data's always been a challenge in IT ever since we were uh, kids in shorts,
Ever
Kieron.
since they were carving on stones.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's got my stone data. So
Yeah,
yeah, that is a real. The whole data is a massive challenge, as we know, and structuring it and actually making sure it is trusted back to the governance thing, back to the context thing. It's all interconnected.
yeah, no, it is.
Yeah. But interesting enough, less than 50% of organizations track their AI costs currently, according to the Gartner survey, which I thought was amazing. Yeah. Especially given the thing, I don't know if we talked about this last week, but you know, people in Silicon Valley turning up and for interview, and their first question is, "What's my token budget?" Not "What's my
Yeah,
salary
yeah,
going to
it's
be?" So,
interesting,
"What's
isn't
my
it?
token budget?" Because actually, I'm going to burn 1 million tokens to do my job, and if you're not going to give me a token budget, I'll go somewhere else where they
Yeah,
will. So I thought was really interesting
isn't
piece,
it?
back bit like the social worker thing about I'm not turning up if you haven't got the right AI for me to do my job.
Yeah, no, indeed.
Yeah.
Very good. Right. You've got some funny quotes from Gartner, haven't you, that we should
Well,
talk
some are
about?
funny, some aren't. I mean, I've used a couple of them already, but there was back to the people thing. There was a quote which said, "People don't fear AI doing their jobs; they fear their bosses thinking that AI can do their jobs and firing them, and then their bosses finding out that they can't." And there are examples of that on the wires of organisations that are having to rehire people because they fired them because they found out that AI couldn't actually do the job in the way they wanted. So that was fun. But my favorite daft quote was, "You don't want to end up with a zoo of AI products," and
Very good.
that is really interesting to me because part of our knowledge flow thing, you can have as many assistants and we'll separate them and we can link them together, etc. But that company that turned us down this morning, they mentioned at least two products in that email, and they are going to end up with a zoo of AI products, and it is going to be difficult and awkward, and you can just guarantee there'll be vendors going, "No, it's not us. That's the problem. It's somebody
Yeah,
else's
indeed.
fault."
Yeah.
So
It's your
yeah, there's
data
going to
over
be
there. That's the
yeah,
challenge. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But there was I was going to finish on the bonkers thing. So unless you've got anything else, I'll move on to the bonkers bit. Have you got anything else on
The
your list?
product of the week. Well, I just wanted
Oh
to
yeah.
share a product of the week because I
Hang
think
on a sec.
let's
Play the theme
capture it
tune in your
in
head.
our ramble. So, are you going to play your jingle in your head? Good,
Yeah, done it. Right. Okay, good.
good, right, perfect. Memory.
Oh
KnowledgeFlow
yes.
now has memory. And I amused myself because I'm testing it just today. I said, I want you to start every response by calling me, "Hey, dude." And now it does it. And it's really funny because I've forgotten I've done it. And later in the day, I'm doing something quite serious, analyze this data for this thing. And it goes, "Hey, dude, here's the." So that's quite fun. So, yeah, being able to, and I mean, the more serious side of that is being able to catch preferences, roles. We can already pick up enter ID information, but it's normally so out of date, it's not that helpful. But certainly being able to know that your finance and your CFO and you like to have this kind of structure to your stuff, all of that is going to be really helpful and bring knowledge flow really alongside what some of that, Claude is able to do, but you can't do it securely. We can do it securely. So that's an exciting little piece. So that's the product of the week for us this week.
Very good. Well done, dude. Oh, well done, Donald, I should say, shouldn't
Yeah,
I?
Donald,
Yeah.
dude.
Let me finish then on a bit of a bonkers thing, and this made me laugh. So some of this is uh, the futurists always start with something that's kind of in play now and then move to the extreme, and this chap was talking about prosthetics and how you could move a hand just by thinking about it if you've got the right
Yeah.
neural implants, etc. And he said, what would happen if, would you be prepared to take a cheaper version if it played ads? And
Yeah, yeah.
he said, and he said there was a Black Mirror episode where
I know, I
there's
love this.
somebody had an upgrade and it was, and then they just start saying, and this pen, it's brilliant at 2.99. You should have one. So, and she rings up to complain. I can't stop trying to sell things to people. Well, you can
Yeah,
upgrade for a fee. You can upgrade to the non-ad version, which
it's
made me
hilarious.
which made me laugh. But then he said, if you've got a neural network, and do you allow your employer to connect to it? Because then they could just pay you for when you're thinking about work. And this lady in the audience laughed so loud, and he got the microphone to said, "Why are you laughing?" And she said, she didn't actually use these words. She used much worse language. She said, "If that happens, I'm screwed," because I don't think about work all that much. So that made me laugh.
You haven't got paid again today. You didn't think about
That's
it
right.
at
I didn't
all,
get
did you?
paid. Yeah. And interesting if he said,
Fabulous.
he said, oh, I'd quite like it because I lay awake at night worrying about work. So, and I think about it and I dream about it. So I want to get paid for when I'm dreaming. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you're a bit weird, fella. He did have very purple shoes. He was interesting chap, though. Very
He
funny
was
chap.
very, very funny.
But he left with this final thought. He said, would you want your wife to connect to your neural network? He says, I don't think many marriages would last more than 5 minutes if your partner knew what you were thinking all of the time. And I think that's probably right.
Well, I'm sure yours would. It would just, Helen would feel the love
What
flowing
do you
from you.
hang on a sec? It's not 2 episodes since I was in the doghouse, so
Oh, yeah.
we
Very good.
I may as well just get a kennel. I go
Yeah,
and
that's
live.
it. Stay
I'll
there.
go and live in a
Make it
kennel
nice.
in the
Get an
garden.
extension built. Stay
On
in the
that
doghouse.
note,
Yeah, very good. Lovely to see you. Look forward to a further week of wonderful work, and we can see you on the podcast next week.
I'll see you on the podcast next week, and I'm back in London. I'm currently in sunny Scotland, and despite
Yeah.
all of the weather forecasts, it's lovely and sunny. So I'm now going to knock the top off a beer and go and sit in the garden.
Very nice indeed. What a wonderful way to end a Friday afternoon or
Excellent. All right,
Tuesday
fella.
if you're listening to this
Yeah,
podcast live.
Tuesday. Excellent Tuesday. Beer Tuesday. All right, dude.
See you later. Thank you. See you later. Bye.